All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at our first design for the pole holder. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so the first thing that I did, if you look at my feature tree here, is I went in and I used the slice feature. The slice feature allowed me to get some of the geometry that's around the front of this kind of cockpit area. And I created a lot more geometry than what I needed, that is a lot more sketches. So I could have easily simplified this and only done kind of the upper half of the boat. It would have really saved me some computational time and just some resources and stuff as well. I'm also using, as I go through this, something called display states. We talk about this in like the assembly class, but display states are also used in parts to toggle different things. This is a multi-body part. It just made it a lot easier for me to create things really quickly. We didn't really have a whole lot of time to go through and work on these designs, so using that display state allows me to isolate this particular set of bodies that I created. So you can see, actually, I gave Chantel a couple of different colors. I said that I'd only give her the black, but I got some red also. And I'm just gonna go through and hide a couple of these bodies so that you can see some of the features that I created. So I made some ties for the back of it because I was worried about the strength of this part. Because it turns out that I'm gonna actually need to print it in two separate pieces, and kind of how I discovered that without having to like actually send it outside of SolidWorks and put it through a slicer and do all of that was basically just go up to the help menu, and I can go into the print option, choose my printer, and I can just select a face that I want to use for the print direction. So if I select any face, and another reason why I split this was there's not really a good face to base the print off of without having to create a lot of different support. We can see easily that there's no way that this thing's going to fit on that kind of 8x8 build area. So I went in ahead and I just hit the scale to fit, but I'm going to need to split this thing and figure out another way to get it on there. So I actually designed it in two separate halves. You might notice also here the angled faces coming up away from that. That was to help prevent some of the overhangs that I was going to see having to deal with the print orientation that I was printing in, really helping me to reduce the amount of support that I'm going to need. So here I just need to change the orientation that I'm going to print in, and then I can simply come down and hit the orient to fit option. And I'll go ahead and put it inside of my build volume. I can see easily that it fits. I do know that I'm going to have some print overhangs and stuff, but that's all right. I can deal with that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring back some of these other bodies here so we can talk about some more of the stuff here. One of the things that was a little bit of a problem for me was joining these together. And I came up with the idea of using kind of a 3D printing pen to kind of weld them together. And that actually worked out really well. And in the final version of this, I actually put a small chamfer on the intersecting edge there. But I did want to cover up a majority of this edge because just to give it a little bit more strength. So I created a couple of additional bodies. So there were those fastening ties that were on the back side here that I used, but I also created some additional components to kind of give it a little bit more finished feel. So in the front, I have this tie that goes into those two holes with a press fit. And it has the Quest logo on it, of course. All right, so in the back here, I created a piece that would clean up some of the overhangs and areas where I needed to print with some support material. And then on the bottom here, I went ahead and created some bow ties, as well as kind of a little fastening clip that I could simply slide into place and maybe use a little bit of super glue to hold it. That would really give this a little bit of extra strength to keep those from kind of splitting apart again. Overall, I was trying to kind of be mindful as I created this about what was easy to 3D print and what would maybe take a little bit more work. When you're working with these mesh bodies, it's sometimes nice to work in shaded mode so you don't have to see all the vertices of the mesh body. But the only other thing that I really added here that was really useful were these cutouts that were in the sides here that helped me mount. You can see there's a kind of a key feature that I'd push this thing down and then slide it forward, and it would lock into place. And I made this round so that I could try a couple different types of features. So that meant that I didn't have to print that same like lower piece over and over again. I could simply try a couple different fits, try a couple different dimensions to make sure I get a good press fit on this component, as well as maybe a couple of different shapes in there to make sure that I got it to lock into place correctly. All right, another tip I'll give you here is go up into your solid bodies folder. Sometimes when you're dealing with these mesh bodies in a multi-body part like this, it's better to work on these bodies outside of their initial context, so I don't have all of the resources taking up performance with my machine. It makes it just really easy for me to come in and do something like save out these bodies individually. I can simply go up and do my save as, save this body as an STL, right, give it a name, and then make sure that I'm telling it to save just the selected body, because if I do all, it's going to grab this whole thing and I won't be able to split those very easily in my slicer. You can also just use a macro. So I've written my own macro that will save the body into the folder for me automatically. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something along the way. We talked a lot about different stuff like SolidWorks with display states and appearances, and graphics bodies with meshing, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there, and hopefully you guys can take something that you can use. And hopefully you can also do some 3D printing. I really am enjoying this project just from the aspect of 3D printing. So hopefully you guys can do that as well. Hopefully you can make your own cup holders and pole holders, and I want to see them if you do. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.